It was supposed to be a normal family dinner. We had these dinners often enough, and I always looked forward to them, even though I knew they were never really normal. My parents, my brother, and me, sitting around the table, eating, talking, catching up. Or at least, that's how it was supposed to be. But tonight was different. I could feel it the moment I walked into the dining room. My parents weren't smiling like they usually did when I entered. My brother, who usually cracked some joke to break the ice, was just staring at his plate. Even the air felt thick, like something was hanging over us, waiting to be addressed. And as soon as I sat down, I knew this wasn't going to be a usual dinner. We sat down, the awkward silence wrapping around us like a heavy blanket. I tried to make small talk, asking about their day, about work. But it didn't work. My parents' eyes were elsewhere, and my brother didn't even seem to notice me. Finally, my mom cleared her throat. "Rachel, we need to talk about something important." The tone in her voice was like a warning bell going off in my head. My stomach tightened, and I immediately felt the nerves creeping up. Something was wrong. But what? "Sure, Mom," I said, trying to sound casual, though my voice gave me away. "What's going on?" Dad, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke. "We've been discussing the future of the company, and we've made a decision." I froze. The company was my life. I had been working there for as long as I could remember, helping my dad with finances, meeting clients, and handling some of the day-to-day operations. It was supposed to be my future. It had always been understood that when the time came, I would take over. I had worked so hard for it. So why was my heart suddenly in my throat? My mom continued, "We've decided that Jason will be taking over the family business." Jason, my brother, the one who had never shown an interest in the business, the one who had gone off to college only to return home without any real plan, the one who had spent more time at parties than at meetings, and yet somehow he was going to be in charge. I couldn't believe it. My mind raced, and I could feel my chest tightening with disbelief. I had worked my whole life for this, and they were giving it all away to him. "What do you mean, Jason?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Why him?" Dad looked at me, his eyes soft but firm. "We think he has a fresh perspective. He's got the leadership skills that we believe will take the company to the next level. It's just time." Time? Time for what? Time for him to step into a position he wasn't ready for? Time for me to be dismissed after all the hard work I had put in? I felt like the floor was falling out from beneath me. I opened my mouth to say something, to argue, to make them see how wrong this was. But nothing came out. Instead, I just sat there, stunned. Jason, who had been silent up until this point, finally spoke. "I know this is hard for you, Rachel. I didn't ask for this, but Mom and Dad think I'm the right one for it. I'll do my best. But I think we all need to just move forward." Move forward? He was talking about my future, my work, my dream. He had no idea what it took to build this business, to keep it running. But now he was going to take it all from me without even understanding it? I stood up from the table. "This is insane," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "I've put my life into this business. You can't just hand it over to him. You can't just dismiss me like this." But my words didn't matter. They looked at me with pity, and my brother didn't even flinch. He didn't understand what this meant to me. I felt my heart breaking as I walked out of the room. The anger inside me was boiling, but there was something deeper, something more painful. It wasn't just the anger. It was the feeling of being invisible, of being nothing. I had given everything, and in a single moment, it had all been taken away. I spent the next few days in a daze. It was like everything had been ripped from me, and I was left to pick up the pieces. I couldn't get that dinner out of my head. Couldn't, shake the feeling of being invisible. My parents, the people who were supposed to support me, had decided to overlook my years of hard work and hand the business to my brother. And Jason? He didn't even know how much I had sacrificed to keep the company afloat. It was as if none of it mattered. I kept myself busy, throwing myself into work, answering emails, attending meetings, pretending like nothing was wrong. But deep down, I was broken. Every time I passed my father's office, every time I picked up the phone to call a client, I was reminded of everything I had lost. And I couldn't help but feel betrayed. It was late on a Thursday when I received an unexpected call. I had just finished a long day of meetings and was about to head home. When my phone buzzed, the name on the screen caught my attention. Mr. Harrison. I hadn't heard that name in a while. He was the managing director at Ashton & Co., my father's closest business partner. I had met him a few times at business events, but I didn't expect to hear from him directly. I hesitated for a moment before answering. "Hello? Rachel," he said warmly. "I hope you're doing well. I wanted to reach out to congratulate you." I blinked. "Congratulate me? For what?" "For how you've handled things," he said. "I've been hearing a lot of great things about you. And your work with your parents' company. Your dad speaks very highly of you." I felt a lump form in my throat. After everything that had happened, hearing someone else speak positively about me felt like a breath of fresh air. "Thank you," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I appreciate that." "I know it's been a tough time for you with the recent changes," Mr. Harrison continued, "but I've been following your career for a while now, and I want you to know that I see the potential in you. Your family's business has a bright future, and I believe you have what it takes to lead it into that future." My heart skipped a beat. Lead it? I had been trying to fight for that position, but hearing it from someone outside my family, someone with actual experience in business, made it feel real. Maybe I'm not invisible after all. I don't know what to say," I stammered. "This means a lot to me." "You deserve it," he said kindly. "I think you're the right person to take the reins, and I want to help you, however I can. Maybe it's time you start making your mark on the company, Rachel. I think you'll be an excellent leader." For the first time in days, I felt like someone actually saw me. Not just as the daughter of my parents, not just as the person trying to hold everything together, but as someone who had earned her place, who was capable of making a difference. Mr. Harrison wasn't just throwing empty praise at me. He was acknowledging my worth, my experience, and my potential. "Thank you," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "I'll do my best." "We'll talk more soon," Mr. Harrison said. "I look forward to seeing what you do next, Rachel." The call ended, and I sat in silence for a moment, letting the weight of his words sink in. It was the validation I needed. For the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel invisible anymore. Someone outside my family had recognized my work, had seen my value, and it changed everything. The next morning, I woke up with a new sense of determination. I wasn't going to let my family's decision define me. I wasn't going to sit around waiting for someone to give me permission to lead. Mr. Harrison had given me the confidence I needed to take control of my own future. I went into the office early that day, more motivated than I had been in weeks. There was still a lot to figure out, still a lot of work ahead of me. But I knew now that I wasn't alone. I had the skills, the drive, and now I had someone who believed in me. As I walked into the office, I caught sight of Jason. He was sitting at his desk, looking over some reports. I knew he had been getting more involved in the company, but it didn't feel the same anymore. I wasn't angry at him. I wasn't even angry at my parents anymore. But I was determined to show them, to show everyone that I was capable of leading this company, and I wasn't going to wait for anyone's permission. "Hey, Jason," I said, walking over to his desk. He looked up, surprised. "Oh, hey, Rachel. How's everything going? Everything's going well, I said, sitting down, across from him. But I wanted to let you know something. Jason raised an eyebrow. What's up? I'm going to take a more active role in the company. I've been given a lot of support from Mr. Harrison, and I think it's time I start leading some projects. I'm not waiting around anymore. Jason didn't say anything at first. He just looked at me, probably unsure of how to respond. But after a moment, he nodded slowly. I get it, Rachel. You've always been the one to keep this company running. I'm just trying to help out where I can. I smiled, feeling a small sense of relief. This wasn't going to be easy, and it wasn't going to be quick. But for the first time, I felt like I had control over my future. The next few weeks flew by, and with each passing day, I found myself more immersed in the responsibilities of leading the company. Jason was still around, though his involvement seemed to fade as I took more control. I wasn't trying to push him out of the picture, but I knew this was my time. I had to prove not just to my family but to myself that I was capable. It wasn't all smooth sailing. The pressure was intense. I had to juggle meetings, clients, new projects, and the day-to-day demands of the business. There were moments when I felt like I was drowning, and in those moments, the doubts crept back in. Am I really cut out for this? Can I handle all of this responsibility? But then, I would remember the words from Mr. Harrison, the support he gave me, and I would push through. One afternoon, I found myself in a meeting with a potential new client. The contract was big, one that could make or break our next quarter, and I knew I had to land it. The stakes were higher than ever, and as the meeting went on, I could see the client's interest waning. They weren't convinced. My heart began to race. I looked around the room at my team, who were seated around the table, waiting for me to make the sale. I could feel the weight of their eyes on me. My mind raced through the facts, the figures, the pitch I had prepared. But nothing seemed to click. The client was asking questions I didn't have the answers to. I was losing them. Focus, Rachel. Don't panic. I leaned forward, keeping my voice steady. I understand your concerns, but let me tell you this. We've been around for over 20 years, and we've built this business on one principle: trust. We've worked with some of the biggest names in the industry, and every time, we deliver on what we promise. This partnership is not just about a transaction. It's about building a lasting relationship. We're here to make your business better, and we're committed to your success. For a moment, the room was silent. I held my breath, waiting for the response. The client exchanged glances with his team, and I could feel the tension in the air. Finally, he nodded. All right, Rachel, you've got the deal. I could hardly believe it. The relief that washed over me was overwhelming. I had done it. I had landed the biggest deal of my career. And more than that, I had proven to myself that I was capable of handling the pressure. It felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. As I left the meeting, I couldn't stop smiling. I felt powerful. I felt in control. And it wasn't just the deal that made me feel that way. It was the realization that I had done something on my own, without anyone holding my hand, without anyone telling me I wasn't enough. That evening, I drove home, feeling a sense of accomplishment I hadn't felt in years. The phone buzzed, breaking my thoughts. It was a message from Emily. I'm proud of you, Rachel. You've come a long way. I've seen how hard you've worked, and I know you're the one who deserves to lead this company. You've earned it. I smiled, feeling my heart swell. Emily had always been my sister, but now it felt like we were allies. We weren't just family anymore. We were partners in this journey, and I couldn't have done it without her. That night, I sat in my living room, reflecting on how far I had come. Not just in my career, but in my own growth. I had spent so much time doubting myself, So much time letting the opinions of others shape my sense of worth. But now, I was finally starting to see myself the way others saw me. Strong, capable, and deserving of everything I had achieved. But I also knew that this was just the beginning. There were still challenges ahead. The business wasn't going to run itself. My family wasn't going to suddenly be on my side just because I had closed one deal. I had to keep proving myself. But now I was ready. I took a deep breath and smiled. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid to walk it alone. Just when I thought things were finally falling into place, the universe threw me a curveball. I had successfully closed that big deal, earned the respect of my team, and was starting to feel like I had control of the reins. But one phone call shattered that illusion. It came on a Tuesday afternoon. I had just finished an all-day planning session with my senior management team when my phone buzzed. I looked down at the screen and saw the name Dad flashing. I hesitated for a moment. It wasn't uncommon for my dad to call about business matters, but after everything that had happened, I hadn't heard much from him lately. I quickly answered. "Hi, Dad," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Rachel," he said, his voice sounding strained. "We need to talk. It's about the business." A cold wave of dread swept over me. The last time I had heard that tone from him was when he was telling me I wasn't ready for leadership, that my brother Jason would be taking over. Was this about that? Was he about to tell me that they were reconsidering the decision? "Is everything okay?" I asked, trying to hide the nervousness in my voice. I'm not sure how to say this, Rachel," he said, and I could hear the weight in his words. "But there's been a major issue with the finances, a big discrepancy." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "We've been reviewing the books, and it looks like there's a substantial gap, one that could jeopardize the company's stability. There were some mistakes made in the past, and now we're facing a serious financial issue." I was silent for a long moment, trying to process what he was saying. Mistakes? Financial issues? How had this happened? I had been so focused on my responsibilities, so confident that I was doing everything right. How could I have missed this? "I don't understand, Dad," I finally said. "How did this happen? I've been handling the finances. What exactly went wrong?" "There are gaps that go back several months," he explained. "It seems that some of the previous reports weren't accurate. We've been trying to track down exactly what happened, but it's been difficult." I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I had been doing everything by the book, making sure that all reports were accurate, all financial records updated. How could there have been mistakes like this? "I need you to come in tomorrow," he said, breaking my thoughts. "We need to figure out how to fix this together." "Of course," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'll be there." The next day, I walked into the office feeling a sense of dread I had never experienced before. The company I had worked so hard to build and lead was now at risk. How could this have happened? How could I have missed something so critical? When I walked into my father's office, I was met with a serious expression. Mom was sitting beside him, both of them looking like they had aged a decade overnight. The weight of the situation was palpable. "Rachel, we've gone through the reports again," Dad said, his voice tight. "It's worse than we thought. We're going to need to make some hard decisions." I sat down, my mind racing. What did this mean for me? For the company? What kind of mistakes were we talking about? And how could I fix this? "We're bringing in an external audit team," my mom said, her voice a little softer than Dad's. "They'll help us figure out exactly what happened and what needs to be done." I nodded, trying to stay calm. "Okay, I'll work with them. But we can't afford to wait. We need to act quickly. I'll do whatever it takes to make sure we fix this." But as the meeting went on, I couldn't help but feel the weight of failure on my shoulders. I had been in charge of these reports, these numbers. How had I missed something so big? The doubt crept in, gnawing at my confidence. Maybe I wasn't ready after all. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept going over every detail, wondering where things had gone wrong. I reviewed spreadsheets in the middle of the night, hoping to find some clue that could explain the issue. But every time I looked at the numbers, all I saw was a mess I couldn't fix. I felt like I was failing. Failing my family, failing the company, failing myself. The next morning, I met with the audit team. They went over the numbers with me, asking me questions I didn't have the answers to. It felt like I was drowning, like I was losing control of everything. For the first time in a long time, I felt like the inexperienced person they thought I was. At the end of the day, we still didn't have all the answers. The discrepancy was bigger than we had originally thought, and there were still pieces of the puzzle missing. I walked out of the office feeling defeated, my shoulders heavy with the burden of responsibility. I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't ready to fix this mess. And that terrified me. As I sat in my car, staring out the window, I couldn't help but think back to everything that had led me to this moment. I had worked so hard to prove myself, to show that I was capable of leading. And yet, here I was, struggling with a problem I had no idea how to solve. I had to fix this. I couldn't let everything I had worked for fall apart. I couldn't let the mistakes of the past define me. And that night, as I drove home, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let this setback stop me. I was going to find the answers no matter what it took. I would fix this, even if it meant working day and night. I wasn't going to let failure be the end of my story. The next few days felt like a blur of endless phone calls, meetings, and sleepless nights. I was consumed by the financial discrepancy, unable to escape the pressure of it all. Every time I tried to focus, the numbers would swirl in my mind, and I could feel my confidence slipping further away. I was terrified. If I couldn't fix this, I would lose everything: the business, the respect of my family, and most importantly, my self-worth. I spent hours with the audit team, poring over reports, trying to uncover any discrepancies. But it wasn't just the numbers that were the issue. It was the legacy of the company, the trust my family had placed in me, and the fact that, despite my best efforts, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was failing. Then, one evening, just when I thought I had reached my breaking point, I got a call from someone unexpected. It was Mr. Harrison, the managing director at Ashton & Co., the man who had given me the validation I so desperately needed earlier in the year. He had seen something in me when my own family had failed to. "Rachel, I know you've been dealing with some serious challenges lately, but I just wanted to remind you of something." Mr. Harrison's voice was steady and calm. "You've got a lot of people behind you. The company, the employees, they all see you as a leader. You just need to trust yourself." His words hit me like a splash of cold water. Trust myself. I hadn't realized it before, but that was exactly what I wasn't doing. I had been second-guessing myself, letting fear dictate my every move. I had allowed the pressure to crush me, and in the process, I had lost sight of who I was. "Mr. Harrison," I said, my voice a little shaky, "I don't know what to do. I feel like I've failed." He chuckled softly. "Rachel, nobody succeeds without stumbling a few times. You've put in the work and you have the skills to get through this. But you need to stop carrying this burden on your own. Delegate, ask for help, and trust that the team around you wants you to succeed. You're not in this alone." I let his words sink in. He was right. I had been trying to shoulder the entire burden myself. But leadership wasn't about carrying the weight alone. It was about knowing when to ask for help, trusting the people around you, and guiding them toward success. And that's what I had to do. I couldn't fix everything on my own, but I could lean on others and make the right decisions for the future. "Thank you, Mr. Harrison," I said, a sense of clarity washing over me. "You've given me exactly what I needed to hear." The next morning, I called a meeting with my senior leadership team. We had been through a lot together, and it was time for me to show them that I trusted them, that I believed in them, even when I felt like I was falling apart. "I've been carrying a lot of this alone," I began, my voice steady but vulnerable, "and I've realized that it's time for me to ask for help. We're in this together, and I need your expertise, your ideas, and your support. Let's figure this out as a team." The room was silent for a moment, and then, one by one, each member of my leadership team spoke up, offering their insights and ideas. It was amazing how quickly things started to click once I opened up and trusted them. Together, we worked out a plan to address the financial issues, starting with a thorough review of all the reports and digging deeper into the discrepancies. As the meeting went on, I could feel the weight lifting off my shoulders. I wasn't doing this alone anymore. My team had my back, and we were going to fix this together. The following week was a blur of long hours, meetings, and strategy sessions, but we finally uncovered the root of the issue. A few accounting errors from a previous quarter had gone unnoticed, and the data had been misreported. It wasn't as catastrophic as I had feared, but it was still a serious oversight. Thankfully, we were able to correct the errors, and the company was back on track. But the real win came from what happened next. My parents called me into their office. "Rachel," my dad said, looking at me with a softer expression than usual, "we've been reviewing everything and we want to apologize." I was taken aback. I hadn't expected this. "For what?" "For not supporting you the way we should have," my mom said, her voice tinged with regret. "We've seen how hard you've worked, and we've seen your growth. We were wrong to doubt you." I felt a lump in my throat. This was the validation I had been waiting for, the recognition I needed from my parents. It wasn't easy to hear, but it was everything. They had finally seen me for who I truly was, a leader. "Thank you," I said quietly, feeling tears well up in my eyes. "I'm just doing my best." "I know," my dad replied, his voice thick with emotion, "and we're proud of you." It was the first time I had ever heard those words from him, and it meant more to me than I could explain. That night, as I sat in my office, reflecting on everything that had happened, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in months. The road hadn't been easy, and it still wasn't. But I was no longer afraid of the challenges ahead. I had learned to trust myself, to lean on my team, and to accept that I wasn't in this alone. I had finally found my place, not just in the company, but in my family. And for the first time in a long time, I believed that the future was mine to shape. With the business back on track, I started to feel a sense of control again. The pressure hadn't completely lifted, but now it felt manageable. I was in a rhythm, working with my team, meeting with clients, and handling the ongoing challenges with confidence. But there was still an underlying tension between me and the rest of the family. My relationship with Jason in particular felt strained. Despite our earlier reconciliation, something still didn't feel quite right. One evening, about 2 weeks after the meeting with my parents, I got an unexpected call. It was Jason. "Hey, Rachel, can we talk?" His voice sounded cautious, almost hesitant. I couldn't help but feel a bit defensive. After everything that had happened, I wasn't sure where we stood anymore. "Sure," I replied, trying to keep things light. "What's going on?" "I've been thinking a lot lately," he said. "I know things haven't been easy between us, and I wanted to apologize for the way everything went down with the business. I should have supported you more. I should have seen how hard you worked for this." I was quiet for a moment, surprised by his sincerity. I had expected more tension, more resistance, but here he was, admitting his mistakes. "I appreciate that, Jason," I said softly. "It's been hard for both of us. But we're in this together now, whether we like it or not. We need to find a way to work together, really work together. if we're going to make this business thrive. I agree, he said quickly. I don't want to keep feeling like we're at odds. I want to help. I know I've messed up in the past, but I'm ready to step up if you'll let me. His words hit me in a way I didn't expect. I had spent so much time pushing him away, convinced that he didn't deserve a place in the company, but hearing him speak with so much humility made me realize that maybe we both had room to grow. We both had lessons to learn, and we both had to earn each other's trust. I'm glad to hear that, I said, a sense of relief washing over me. I think we can make it work, Jason, but it's going to take time, and it's going to take effort from both of us. I'm in, he said. Let's do this. And just like that, things started to shift between us. It wasn't an overnight change, but it was a start. We began to work together more closely, sharing ideas, collaborating on projects, and slowly rebuilding the trust that had been broken. It wasn't perfect, but it felt right. The real test came when I had to present a major new business initiative to some of our most important clients. We had been working on this project for months, and it was my first big chance to prove that I could handle not just the internal aspects of the business, but also its external relationships. I couldn't afford to mess this up. Jason and I worked together for days, fine-tuning the presentation, making sure every detail was perfect. As we stood in front of the clients, ready to present our ideas, I could feel the weight of the moment. This wasn't just about winning a contract. This was about proving that we, as a team, could deliver. I looked at Jason, who was standing beside me, and gave him a small nod. He returned it, and for the first time, I felt like we were truly on the same side. The presentation went off without a hitch. The clients were impressed, and by the end of the meeting, they agreed to move forward with the project. The relief I felt was indescribable. It wasn't just about the win. It was about knowing that I had done it, not alone, but with my brother, at my side, together. As we walked out of the meeting, I turned to Jason. "We did it," I said, a smile creeping onto my face. He smiled back. "Yeah, we did. Together. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be." The next few weeks were a whirlwind. With the new project secured, I dove into it head first, along with the rest of the team. We worked harder than ever, each day bringing new challenges and opportunities. But with each passing day, I felt more confident in my role as the leader of the company. I was making decisions, handling crises, and seeing the results of my hard work paying off. I was no longer just the daughter of the business owners. I was Rachel Levine, CEO. But even with the success and the progress, I knew there was still more to prove. There was still a part of me that doubted if I was truly capable of leading the business in the long run. Could I handle everything that came with this responsibility? Could I continue to push the company forward without burning out? One evening, after a particularly grueling day, I found myself back in my office, staring at the city skyline. The lights twinkling in the distance reminded me of how far I had come, but they also reminded me of the uncertainty that still loomed ahead. That was when I heard a knock at the door. It was Emily. "Mind if I come in?" she asked, her voice light. "Of course," I said, motioning for her to sit. "What's up?" She smiled and sat down across from me. "I just wanted to check in. You've been working nonstop, and I wanted to make sure you're doing okay." I chuckled softly. "I'm surviving, I guess. It's a lot, but I'm managing." "You're doing great, Rachel," she said earnestly. "I know you don't always feel like it, but look at everything you've accomplished. You've built this, and you're leading it. You're a force." Her words hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't just that she was my sister. It was that she had seen the struggle, the doubt, and the work I had put into this. And she believed in me. "Couldn't have done it without you, Emily," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "You've been my rock through all of this." She smiled, her eyes soft. "And I always will be. You've got this. I'm proud of you." For the first time in a long time, I let myself relax. I let myself believe that everything would be okay. As the weeks went on, things started to settle into a new rhythm. The business was growing. My relationship with Emily and Jason was improving, and I felt like I was finally becoming the leader I had always hoped to be. But despite everything looking perfect on the outside, there was still one thing that lingered, an unresolved issue that I had been avoiding for far too long. I had started to notice a growing tension between my parents and me again. Although they had supported me in stepping into the leadership role, there was an underlying strain in our relationship. I knew they were proud of me, but it felt like something was missing. I had given so much of myself to the company, but I had failed to address the emotional distance that had crept in over the years. One afternoon, my mom called me into her office. I could tell from the moment she asked to speak with me that this wasn't just a casual check-in. My stomach dropped. I knew something was coming. "Sit down, Rachel," she said softly, her voice a little more serious than usual. I sat down across from her, my hands folded in my lap, trying to steady my nerves. "I've been thinking a lot about everything that's been going on lately," she began. "About the company. About you. I could feel my heart racing." "What is this about?" "I've seen how hard you've worked, and I'm proud of everything you've done," she continued. "But I also want to make sure you're taking care of yourself, Rachel. You've been so focused on the company, on proving yourself, that I'm worried you're forgetting about your own happiness. You're pushing yourself too hard." Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. My mom had always been the one to push me to be better. But now, for the first time, she was telling me I needed to slow down. She was worried about me, about my well-being. And it stung, because in some way I had pushed her away too. I had become so consumed by my responsibilities that I had neglected the emotional side of things. "I don't know what to say," I said, my voice wavering. "I feel like I have to do this. I have to prove I'm capable, that I can handle everything. If I don't, everything we've built will fall apart." "That's not true," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "You've already proven yourself. You've been carrying this business on your shoulders for years. But you don't have to do it all on your own anymore. You have a family that loves you and supports you. You need to lean on us, Rachel." Her words were exactly what I needed to hear. But they also made me realize something I had been avoiding. I had been so focused on the business, on proving that I could lead, that I had forgotten about the people who cared about me the most. I had shut myself off, thinking I had to do everything alone. But the truth was, I didn't have to. And I shouldn't have. "I'm sorry, Mom," I whispered, feeling a lump form in my throat. "I've been so wrapped up in this. In all of it. I didn't even realize how much I've been neglecting everything else." She reached across the desk and took my hand. "Rachel, you're doing great. But you need to take care of yourself too. We need you, and we want to be there for you." That moment, sitting there with my mom, made me realize that I had been fighting the wrong battles. I had been so focused on proving myself to everyone that I had forgotten about what truly mattered: my family, my health, and my own happiness. Later that day, I went for a walk in the park, trying to clear my mind. As I walked, I thought about everything my mom had said. I had been so afraid of failure, so determined to prove my worth, that I had lost sight of what truly mattered. I had a family who loved me, a team who supported me, and the opportunity to do something incredible. And yet, I had spent so much of my time doubting myself, thinking that I had to carry the weight of everything alone. As the sun began to set, I found a bench by the lake and sat down, letting the stillness of the moment wash over me. I thought about the road ahead, about the challenges, the decisions, the responsibilities. But now, I knew that I wasn't alone. I didn't have to carry it all on my own. I had the people who cared about me, who were ready to support me, and that made all the difference. I stood up from the bench, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. I still had work to do, but now I was ready to face it. I was ready to be the leader I was meant to be, not just for the company, but for myself. The days that followed that conversation with my mom felt different. I started waking up with a new sense of purpose, not just about the company, but about everything else in my life. The pressure hadn't disappeared completely, but I wasn't carrying it alone anymore. I realized I didn't have to prove myself to everyone. I had already proven my worth, both to my family and to myself. With this newfound perspective, I approached my work with a sense of calm that had been missing before. I still worked long hours, still made tough decisions, but I began to trust my team more, and more importantly, I started taking time for myself. I took breaks, went for walks, and spent more time with Emily and Jason. The work wasn't going to stop, but I had learned that it didn't have to consume every part of me. Then, one day, I walked into the office and was met with a surprise. Jason was standing by my desk, holding a stack of papers. His usual casual demeanor was replaced with a nervous energy I hadn't seen in a long time. "Hey, Rachel," he said, his voice hesitating. I've been thinking about what you said the other day, and I want to make things right." I raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" He sat down across from me, a little uncomfortable. "I've been taking a step back, trying to understand the way things work now. You're doing an incredible job leading the company, Rachel. And I don't want to just be the guy in the background. I've been trying to figure out where I fit in, and I think it's time for me to step up in my own way." For a moment, I just stared at him, processing his words. He had always been the easygoing one, the one who didn't take things seriously. But now, there was a shift in him. He was acknowledging my role as the leader, and he wanted to contribute in a way that felt right for him. "That means a lot, Jason," I said, a smile slowly spreading across my face. "I know things have been rocky, but I'm glad to hear you say that. I know I've made mistakes, and I've been, well, kind of lost in the past," Jason continued. "But I want to make a real contribution now. I think I can help out in areas where I have experience, maybe with marketing or partnerships. I'm not asking to lead the company. I'm asking to be a part of it in a way that makes sense for me." It was like a weight had lifted from my chest. This was exactly what I needed to hear. For so long, I had feared that Jason and I would always be at odds, but this conversation made it clear that we were ready to work together, not against each other. "I think that's a great idea," I said, feeling a sense of relief. "We've got a lot of work ahead of us, and having you involved in a meaningful way will make all the difference." From that point on, Jason and I began to collaborate more closely. He took charge of expanding the company's marketing efforts, using his creativity and natural charisma to forge new partnerships. It didn't take long for me to see that he was right. He wasn't just my brother. He was an asset to the company. We both had our strengths, and together, we were unstoppable. But as the company grew, so did the challenges. We had been taking on larger projects, attracting more clients, and expanding into new markets. With all the success came an increasing amount of pressure. We were constantly on the move, juggling more tasks and deadlines than ever before. Despite the excitement, I couldn't help but feel a familiar sense of overwhelm creeping back in. One night, as I sat alone in my office, going over the latest contracts, I found myself staring at the clock. It was already past midnight, and the weight of everything was starting to feel unbearable again. My phone buzzed, and I looked down to see a message from Emily. "Just checking in. How are you holding up?" I sighed, leaning back in my chair. I typed back quickly. "I'm exhausted. So much to do, and I'm not sure I'm keeping up." The response came almost instantly. "I know it's hard, but remember, you don't have to do it all alone. We're here for you, Rachel. You've already done more than enough. Her words hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't just about the business. It was about me, about making sure I took care of myself and not letting the pressure consume me. Emily had been by my side through every step of this journey, and I had to remind myself that I wasn't in this alone. I sat there for a while, letting her message sink in. I had come so far, and I had achieved more than I ever thought possible. But if I wanted to keep moving forward, I had to make sure I was taking care of myself too. I couldn't keep running on empty. The next day, I made a decision. I told my team that we needed to slow down, just a little. We were going to take a step back and reassess our priorities. I wasn't going to let the pressure of success cloud my judgment or my health. We had worked hard to get where we were, but now it was time to take a breath and enjoy the journey. As I sat in the meeting with my team, explaining the new direction, I realized something important. Success wasn't just about achieving more. It was about enjoying the process, taking care of each other, and remembering why we were doing this in the first place. We had come together as a family, both literal and professional, and that was something worth protecting. The future was still uncertain. But with my family by my side, and the lessons I had learned, I knew I was ready for whatever came next.